Hello. Now in this lesson, we're going to begin to talk about how information is organized in Excel. The first thing is you need to realize that what you're looking at when you look at an Excel document is you're looking at a workbook. So if you're reading in a book or if you're just communicating with someone else and someone's referring to a workbook, this entire document, really the file, is what we call the workbook. That's the whole enchilada. Think of it as a binder, and inside the binder you can have sheets of paper, right? So inside of this workbook we can have different sheets. Now you may not understand in the beginning why you would care about having different sheets in Excel, but just think of it as different pages of a notebook or a workbook, which is exactly what it is. So here I'm looking at sheet 2 I've created. Sheet 1 was, if you click it, it was just a blank sheet that I started with. So you might have, for instance, raw data, raw tables in a sheet, and then you might have a chart in sheet 2, and then you may have another sheet with more calculations or whatever, and you might want to have all of your information organized in different sheets. You know, I may want to have one of these sheets be the January information or the January sales data. I may want to have sheet 2 to be the February sales data, and so on. So there's lots of different reasons to organize information in sheets if you want to. Now to add a sheet, you just click this plus button here. It actually pops up with a toolbar that says new sheet. So when I click it, then a new sheet pops in. And I can keep adding these sheets as much as I want. It doesn't hurt anything. You're not really going to have a problem if you keep adding sheets. You can add as many sheets as you really like to an Excel workbook. Now if you decide that that was an accident and you want to remove a sheet, you can right click on the tab down here, the title, and it says delete right there, so I can delete that. All right. I can also rename a sheet. So, you know, sheet 1, 2, 3, 4 is not terribly useful. So I can go over here, let's say, I can right click this guy and I can hit rename. And then you see it's editable now. So I can say this is, you know, January data. If I'm going to add the January data in, I can rename sheet 2 by right clicking and I can hit chart. I can make it chart. Sheet 3 and sheet 4, you know, I can name them anything I want. But for now I want to delete them, so I'll just right click and hit delete, right click and hit delete. As you begin working with workbooks in Excel, you're going to get to more complicated type of you know, situations, especially if you're, you know, passing these workbooks around a company in the, you know, finance department or something. So you're going to probably need to create and delete sheets all the time. All right, now that we understand how sheets work in Excel, I want to turn your attention to how the grid is really laid out here, the grid here with all of the different intersections, which we call cells. Now you can see that no matter where I click on these little cells here, that's a little rectangular region, I have a column highlighted up here and I have a row highlighted, and the cell here is the intersection of the column with the row. So you can see that the columns go A, you might imagine they go through Z, and they do. So here's Z, but when you get to Z, you got to start over again. So it goes A, B, A, C, and so on. So you could keep scrolling back, and you'll see that it just keeps going on and on and on. There is a limit to how many columns are in Excel, but to be honest, it's so many columns, you're never going to bump into that limit. Now on the rows, you see I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and if I continue scrolling down, you know, those numbers get bigger and bigger and bigger. There's many thousands of rows in Excel. So the bottom line is, since you have thousands of columns and thousands of rows, you really have millions of cells here that are the intersection of the column with the row. So whenever I refer to a cell, let's say I want to refer to this cell right here. I refer to it as N4. You always refer to it as the letter first followed by the number, or the column followed by the row. So this is N4. If I click over here, this is B9. If I click over here, this is C15. Okay? Now notice that every time I click on a new one of these guys, the highlighting changes, showing you where I'm at on the row and the column. But if you look up here, see it says B14? It actually already tells me that I'm in B14. I don't even really need to look at it. If I click over here, I can see it's 07, and it's telling me it's 07 right there. So this thing right here is called the name box. It just tells you where you're at. So if you're lost, if you're way over here, you know, dealing with a a column or something that's way over here and you just get confused looking at all this stuff, you can always look at the name box and that will tell you where you're basically at. So the fundamental part of this lesson that's important is to realize that workbooks are the entire file that you have in Excel. Worksheets are different sheets within the workbook that I can create and remove and rename. The cells are the intersection of a row and a column, and whenever I refer to a cell, I'm going to refer to it by the letter first, so C10, and I can always see where I'm at because I have a name box here that tells me exactly what cell is always highlighted in Excel.